So in an effort to not pigeonhole myself to only be able to talk about games on this channel, I want to take a moment to talk about a show that actually had an impact on me that was way more significant than I was anticipating. Midway through last year, a friend of mine recommended an anime to me by describing it as a Smash Bros. Player teams up with a sociopath to learn how to shower. Honestly, I was sold from that descriptor, so that night, after work, I booted up my laptop, grabbed a snack, and settled into the series called Bottom Tier Character Tomozaki. As my buddy's in-depth summary stated before, the series follows Fumiya Tomozaki, a high schooler who has zero social standing within the walls of his school. But outside of that, he is at the top of the leaderboards for what he refers to as a godly game called Attack Fam. After a bout with the second place player No Name, they decide to meet in person, and Tomozaki learns that No Name is actually his ever so popular classmate Aoi Hinami. Disappointed in how her rival is someone who doesn't have a high social standing, Hinami takes it upon herself to gamify the real world for Tomozaki to help him become a high-tier character. The series evolves using that initial meetup as a launching point for Tomozaki to take better care of himself. He works on his appearance, his posture, the way he speaks to others, all to the point where others start to notice, and soon enough he begins to make a solid group of friends who look out for one another. And while this is great in its own right and can definitely be inspiring to watch, there's one subject that is explored in this series that struck me personally. For anyone looking to watch this series with a fresh perspective, please pause the video and go check it out yourself. I'll give you a bit if you change your mind. Well, welcome back, or thanks for staying. Here's what struck me about bottom tier character Tomozaki. Hinami is a manipulative person. She has a very distinct public image and does everything she can to uphold it, even if it means to use others as stepping stones to further her popularity, to the point where she starts to trivialize Tomozaki's own feelings and tries to force him to pursue romance when he doesn't necessarily desire to explore it. As the series goes on, the viewer learns more about Hinami and her friends, and it becomes more and more clear that the person she portrays herself as around them is a facade carefully maintained in order to keep her social standing. The only person that really observes this side of her is Tomozaki himself, and for most of the series, he doesn't speak up for himself because from his perspective, he needs this wealth of knowledge to make the most of his life. But in episode 11 of season 1, Tomozaki hits a tipping point where he is given the task to ask out another classmate, Fuka Kikuchi, at a fireworks festival. He confronts Tsunami after electing not to complete the task and unloads on them, referring to the mask that she had recommended for him to create to make Kikuchi fall for him and how that made it harder for the two of them to communicate in the past. But during the festival, when Tomozaki was just his awkward self, Kikuchi had a way more enjoyable time. Hinami takes this as a sign to create a new countermeasure or strategy, to which Tomozaki asks why she is so against the idea of what he actually wants. She then spits back at him that thinking of what you actually want, desiring something that doesn't exist yet, is typical weak human behavior. The conversation continues, and Tomozaki responds with this.
そういう問題じゃないんだよ。
じゃあどういう問題？
誰と仲良くするとか、誰かに告白するとか、そういう人とのつながりを課題とか目標で判断してるのがそもそもおかしいんじゃないのか。
There is a common trend among people where they view relationships, romantic or otherwise, as transactional. They give something that they deem to be of value to the other and then expect there to be a form of equivalency where the other individual would give them something back. Kind words, a gift, a higher status in the social hierarchy, or even intimacy become purely bargaining chips with this mentality. And unfortunately, I will admit that I fell into this mentality for a long time. The concept that floated around my head was this: if I can provide something and be useful, then things will fall into place. I had outlines in my head of how I assumed things should work, and when something happened off script, I would lash out, isolate, or indulge in destructive habits to waste my time. This mentality led to so many problems that perpetuated throughout my life that I would just blame on everyone else. How could it be my fault if they were the ones off model? But as silly as this may sound, Tomozaki calling out Hinami at the train station made me look back at the way that I have looked at relationships in my own life, the false expectations I had placed upon friends, family, romance, and more. It was almost as if the show was pointing at me for thinking that Hinami was manipulative and disingenuous and going, well, what about you? It hit me fairly hard. I felt disgusted that I had become so complacent with treating life as a game of checks and balances, of needing to railroad my life to make it easier to handle things, when all I needed to do was respect the people who I claimed to love so much instead of pushing an image onto them and shoving them into a box. I saw myself sitting on the same bench. This encouraged me to think more about what my relationship to, well, relationships are. Over the past year, I dedicated myself to breaking that internal expectation that I had for the people around me, and began to appreciate those who are still in my life even more than I did before. This video is meant to give a general idea of what this series is about and be a jumping off point for whoever watches this to go check out the franchise, but I'd be remiss to not include the impact that this had on me and the value that it helped bring to my life that wouldn't be there if I didn't watch. And this all happened before knowing that there was going to be a season 2 that would further explore these concepts among the other characters in the cast. I really can't recommend this enough, and a link for the MAL listing of the series will be in the description below. Thanks again for taking the time to watch this, and thank you so much for the support on the last video. The idea that I have going forward is I'm just going to make stuff about whatever I'm passionate about instead of sticking to a specific theme. So if you're down for the ride, I'm thankful to have you here. Hope you have a lovely day, and I'll catch you next time. Also, Mimi is the best character in the series. You cannot tell me otherwise.
Wait, what are you doing?